Today is Friday, April 18th, 1997. I'm here with survivor Rose Kozlovsky, maiden name Finkelstein. My name is Lucy Samarodin. I am the interviewer. We are conducting the interview in Baltimore, Maryland, US of A, and the interview is being conducted in English. Today is Friday, April 18th, 1997. I'm here with survivor Rose Kozlovsky, maiden name Finkelstein. We are in Baltimore, Maryland, US of A. The interview is conducted in English. My name is Lucy Samarodin. I am the interviewer. Rose, can you tell me what your maiden name was, your date of birth, and where you were born?
I was born Rachela Finkelstein in January 20th, 1928 in Sosnowiec, Poland.
Where is Sosnowiec near? What is the nearest largest city?
It's not far from Katowice. It's not far from the German border.
What was it like in your early years in Sosnowiec? Who did you live with? And tell me a little bit about what your early life was like in Sosnowiec.
Well, I lived with my parents, father, mother, and I had four sisters and brothers. We were 5 children. My father had a small wholesale warehouse, and he was selling eggs, soap, and detergents. And we were a very happy family, comfortable middle class. And I had a very happy home life.
What was your apartment like? What kind of apartment did you live in?
We had 4 rooms. It was nice, comfortable.
Tell me what your favorite room was in your apartment.
Well, the kitchen. I don't know why, but the kitchen. Of course, must be always sat around in the kitchen.
Tell me something about your father's business and the people that would come in and buy his soap powders.
It was on where we lived up there was a small warehouse, and it wasn't a big business, but it was made a nice living for us. And I don't know much how they were coming, who was coming in to buy, but mostly were for the storekeepers.
Tell me about your brother and their names and their ages.
There was Henry Finkelstein. He is 7. Let me think. He was born in 1920, so he is now 77. I had an older sister. She was born in 1917, but she got killed. She was married, and she got killed with her 2 small children, ages 6 and 4. The boy was 6, and the little girl was 4. Then a sister, Sally Finkelstein. She was born in 1924. A brother, Joshua Finkelstein, he was born in 1927. He got killed. And I was born in 1928, the youngest.
Was there any favoritism for the youngest child?
Well, I was very spoiled, especially because I was a sickly child. I used to have anemia when I was a young girl, and so I was always spoiled by everybody.
How did they spoil you? Do you have any specific
Well, I could
incidents?
get away with more things. I could get away with more things. I would overlook.
Like what?
Well, if I wanted something, or if they sometime played chess and I got in, they always let me get in on it. Or if I wanted something. And in general, I was getting away with a lot of things because I was spoiled and because I off and on was sick.
What was your mother like?
Darling, my mother was wonderful.
What was her name?
Hindalaya.
Tell me about your early school years. Tell me about how you went to school, what kind of school you went to.
I went to, how would you say it here, elementary school. I had only four grades because then they closed up the school. And I was happy. I had friends and used to take lunches with me to school. And I was always, I don't know, I was always a happy child.
How did you get to school? Did you walk to school?
Walk.
Did you have non-Jewish friends?
Yes.
And what was that like?
It was nice. There were boys and girls, and we used to play because we used to live almost together on the same street. And we played. It was fine.
So your neighborhood was not only all Jewish, there were
No.
Jews, and did they live in harmony?
Mostly that I remember, we lived all right with them.
Tell me about some of your favorite sports. What did you like to do?
I was like a tomboy. I liked to play soccer. I just play ball and hopscotch and a bicycle.
What kind of bicycle did you have?
Just a regular bicycle.
And where did you go on your bicycle?
On the street. On the street.
Did you play with dolls?
Oh, yes. With dolls I always played as a child, yes.
Did you have a favorite doll?
Nothing special favorite.
Did you make clothes for your doll?
I never did make it, but I had, well, I had paper clothes for the doll.
Tell me how your family observed the Jewish holidays.
Well, we were Orthodox. My father was at every Saturday synagogue. It was a private synagogue. One of our relatives had a big house, and up there was the synagogue. So the holidays and Saturdays he was going there.
And did you ever go with your father?
I didn't go to the synagogue. I only went Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. That's when they stay there, Yom Kippur especially, the whole day. So I used to go there.
And do you remember what that was like? Did you get dressed up?
Oh, yes, absolutely. New clothes. And I loved to go, and my mother was so proud, especially when the baby came. I was the youngest one. I used to sit on her lap.
When you went to school, tell me about the teachers.
They were very nice. We had Jewish teachers and non-Jewish. And everybody was very nice. And I remember when I saw once a teacher on the street I met. So she was on one side of the street and I was on the other. So I crossed over so that I can bow to her. We were that was an honor to meet the teacher.
Did your grandparents live near?
I
near
never
you?
knew them. I never knew my grandparents. They were dead a long time.
When did you start notice changes coming into Sosnovich? Do you remember what year and when and what the changes were?
Well, it was a little bit, I recall it was a holiday, the Easter, it must be Easter, and that was shortly before the war, I would think. And they used to have cards printed, the Polacks, and written swój do swego po swoje, we to ourselves for ourselves, not to patronize Jewish business. And I didn't know why, but that's what I heard.
What did that do to your father's business?
Well, with the stores that he sold, I don't think it didn't hurt him. Mainly, I believe, was the bigger stores.
When did things start to change for you?
1939. That was one evening, I remember. We were in the house and heard screams, chaos on the street, running, breaking windows, and screaming. We opened the door and said to get in and to stay in, not to come out. They were running wild. I guess that must have been already the neo-Nazis and the Polacks and the Germans, I guess, the other ones that came in. And it was uproar, beaten on the street. It was terrible. And that was the start of it. There was never peace since.
What did you personally see?
I couldn't say nothing.
No,
I was-
see.
Oh,
What
see.
did you personally see?
Oh, I saw them beaten with clubs. People, especially when they saw a Jew with a beard, they were pulling his beard. They were screaming, Jews, Jews, Jews get killed. It was chaos there.
Who was beating them?
The Germans or the neo-Nazis and some Polacks. We were scared of neighbors.
What did your family do?
They couldn't do nothing. We stayed in. And then some days we just went out from the house, so they didn't bother me much. We just went out for a while and came back in.
Did your family ever talk about leaving?
No. It was, I heard once in the house that because we had relatives in the United States, an uncle, that my parents said he wanted us to come, but we had no reason to want to go because we didn't expect what's going to happen like it happened. There was no warning for things. And then if you even would want to, there was no escape.
What happened next?
Well, I remember they closed up stores, they rationed our food, and one of our relatives on my father's side, a young man, and they accused him of having more food. So they hung him. But before they hung him, they sent cards to the relatives to attend the execution. So I remember my mother couldn't go. My father went. And when he came back, the streets were full of music playing, and the Germans were arriving from Katowice, from all the cities around, and with the limousines and on horses to witness it. It was to them like a celebration. And my father came back, and he couldn't move his neck. He was telling us they made a line of SS, a line of of the Jews, relatives, and a line of the relatives, a line of SS, and then again relatives. And when my father noticed, when they were trying to move away from something, so he heard Shema Israel, how he screamed out. And so my father dropped his head, so they hit him with a club in the back of his head to pick his head up and watch it.
What happened to your schools after that?
I didn't have no more school.
They closed them?
They didn't let us attend school.
And the synagogue?
A lot of synagogues were burned. They were burning the synagogues and beating up on the street and shooting them. Just shooting. You could see people laying like nothing.
How is your health at this time?
Exceptionally. I was holding up to it.
What happened to your home? Were you able to stay in your home?
First we stayed for a while, and then they took to the camp my sister and both of my brothers, and I remained. So then after they had left, then they took us to another place that was before the ghetto and pushed us in an apartment, crowded. We couldn't even sleep, a big crowd of people, and we had to stay there for not too long, and then to the ghetto.
While you were living in Sosnovich during this time, did you witness any burnings of anything?
I could see a synagogue being burned, ashes already, and some homes. I don't know what that was, but yes, they were burned, a lot of things. But when they took us to the ghetto, that is the outskirts of Sosnowiec, my sister from Benjin, that was not far from Sosnowiec, that's by Stritka. She came because her husband was taken too, so she came with the 2 children, with her most valuables, and stayed with us.
When they took you out of your apartment, did you take anything with you? Did you take any religious articles or clothes?
No religious articles. I could take probably, I don't remember, probably what I liked, a certain dress, but it was not really of anything.
What year were you taken into the ghetto?
The ghetto must have been maybe the beginning of 42 or the end of 41. I can't recall exactly the year.
Where was the ghetto located?
Shrodula, the outskirts of Sosnowiec. It was called Shrodula.
And what was that like?
There were homes. You could surround it. We could not go nowhere without being surrounded. We were all together, like in one enclosure. You know, I mean, it's spread out, but it was like an enclosure. And across was I would say maybe a couple blocks away, was a big building, very high building, and that was the police headquarters. So when we were in the ghetto, we had to watch the men who were there, had to watch at night to, if the light comes on in that building, that means it's going to be beaten of the Jews, then we have to hide, shooting and beating. So then they came in, and we had in the kitchen was a small opening, and we had to go down underneath in that cellar. They covered it with a board and a piece of rock, and a table stood over it. Where they hid, I don't know. But then the men went. They mostly put the women and children down there.
How many people lived in the ghetto with you?
In our, it was quite a few. It was, well, my sister stayed with me. We didn't have many rooms there. My sister and with her 2 children, and I was with my parents.
What about food? Did you have food there?
Just what they rationed us, the food. But even so, they used to take us, me, to Sosnowiec. They marched us to work from straw. We had to plait, and then with like a crochet needle, but it was with a ear, you know, that you could thread it. And then you had to sew it round and round to make boots for the German soldier, for their boots on top to keep them warm. So while they were marching us out from in the ghetto, I could see open truck without any sides to it, and they were throwing from 2nd floor babies down, and I could see how the babies spattered completely, fell apart. The sideway.
Did you know anybody that lost a baby there? Any people that lived near you?
Well, that time we knew a lot of people, but it was infants, little babies.
Did anybody ever try to escape?
Not
That you
that
knew of?
I know of, no. Because like where I was, I don't think there was a way to escape. And from the ghetto, out of the question. But where could you escape? They were surrounded. They used to take us out in a field at night, and they made the men on one side and the women and children on the other side. And here was a line, I didn't know what that was that time, but like little boxes, and the soldiers were sitting with them in front of them, and we had to lay down. Everybody had to lay down, and every now and then you could hear pop, 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 but some people were killed. That's what they used to do to us.
Did your mother and father work while they were in the ghetto? Did they have to go out to work?
No.
What about your sister?
My sister, the married sister, no, she didn't work either.
Did
Why
you
could
know?
you work?
Did you know if there was any schooling going on in the ghetto? If
Not
the
for
children?
No.
What about sanitary conditions there?
I cannot recall if it was outside, some of them. I think they were outside, but it was okay.
What about illnesses?
Not in the ghetto, I didn't. I don't recall any illness.
What was a typical day for you like in the ghetto?
Nothing. First they were marching us. When I came back from that work, all I did was crying because I had cut, my hands were all from that straw. It was so rough.
Do you know if any religion was practiced in the ghetto?
No.
How long did you stay in the ghetto?
From the time, what was it, end of 41 or beginning 42 till 40, well, 43 is when I went to the concentration camp.
What were you hearing about the war then, while you were in the ghetto?
Nothing.
Did you have radio or anything?
I don't recall it if there was even a radio. that place. See, we couldn't take nothing, our belongings. So we just, whatever there was, but I don't recall any. And who would have listened? We would be scared.
What about, were there newspapers in the ghetto? Did the ghetto have a newspaper?
Not that I know of. We didn't have no idea. We just knew that we got to watch ourselves and we can get killed anytime. I don't believe we...
What about friends? Did you know anybody from Sosnovich that was there that you were friendly with? That you were friendly with?
Well, most all of them, but I don't recall my girlfriend. If she was right next to me, but if not, you made some friends that you stayed now with.
When did they decide to take you out of the ghetto?
When my sister was taken in 1941, at that time it was Arbeitscamp, that was working camp called, to Czechoslovakia. And she gave my name that time. She was hoping if something goes wrong and they want to do something to me, then maybe be safer being there with her. And I never heard about that no more. And then when they sent that I will have to go to the camp, I did not want anymore. So we were threatened that if I don't come, my parents are going to be killed. So I went.
What did you say to your parents when you were leaving?
I didn't want to go. And my mother said, "Go, my baby, go." There was no choice because otherwise they would kill them. So I went. That was the biggest tragedy. I don't know if my mom lived through it or what, I don't know. So when they took me to Sosnowiec, to the city. Up there was like an armory, a big one, with 3 bunk beds, one on top of the other, wooden. And when I got in there, on every bunk bed, everywhere was writings from girls that passed that, in case somebody comes to know they were here.
This is tape 2. I'm speaking with Rose Finkelstein-Kozlovsky, the survivor, and my name is Lucy Samarodin, the interviewer. We were talking about your transport from the ghetto. You went back to Sosnovich, and you were in the barracks, in a barrack kind of living condition, and you were describing what it was like.
Yes, there were barbed windows, barbed wire, and there was nothing but the bunk beds, 3, and the names of a lot of girls that passed through that. Matter of fact, I assigned my name there too. And from there we stayed only for a few days. And from there we were taken to the train station.
Did you know where you were going? Did they tell you?
No. And then we went to the concentration camp, to Auschwitz.
What did you take with you when you went?
You were thinking you need some clothes. I had a couple of things just, but I really didn't need the clothes. They wouldn't.
What kind of transport did you go on? What kind of train was it?
It was a regular train to the concentration camp.
And how long did it take you to get there?
I believe we arrived the same day, I think.
And where did you arrive?
In Paraschnitz by Trautenau.
And where is that near?
It's in Czechoslovakia. It's near Gross-Rosen.
Describe what you first saw when you got off the train.
I saw a lot of SS, and they marched us to the concentration camp. And when I got there, it was terrible. I wanted to go back home. I didn't know that I have to stay there. And there were like big barracks that we stayed in. And it was so dark, and with the bunk beds also, but 2 bunk beds, one on top of the other. And that was start a new life, a terrible life. And I carried on a lot. I cried. I wanted to go, and the girls told me to better keep quiet, or else they're going to send me and I'll never come back. So I just had to be quiet.
How many women were with you?
In that one hall, it was an awful lot. Altogether, we were 600 women.
How many people slept in each barrack?
A lot. It was tremendous, a lot. I cannot exactly tell you how many, but it was an awful lot.
What did they do to you when you got there? Did they shower you? Did they give you clothes?
No, we had certain clothes, to call it. I know I had some skirt with some, and we were given wooden shoes, the cloths like. And then we had to go to work.
What was a typical day? What time did you get up in the morning?
Well, they were getting us up in the middle of the night. Could be cold outside, could be snow, could be freezing, and they were putting us outside for hours, just like we were hardly dressed, and stay for hours while they were counting us. And that counting took for many hours, and that was happening quite often. And then we had to go right. It was happening when they took us out, it was in the middle of the night. And we stayed till the almost morning hours, and then we had to go to work. They took us to work.
Did you see your sister?
Yes, I did.
Were you in the same barrack with your sister?
In the same, yes.
What was your job?
My job, it was a factory. Walzel was the name of the factory, where they made cotton. I can't tell you, there were different departments where some girls worked in a very dusty place making, my sister worked in water. And mine came, I will describe it, Vorspin, they called it Vorspin. They were spools, big spools with cotton-like, and here was a big like a barrel, and the cotton was going through that barrel electrically. And when it tore, the only way to stop it, you had to stop it with your stomach. So I had to fall over it and stop it. And then with a certain knot that they showed you to tie it and let it go again. And that was happening quite often because it was so thin and it kept on tearing, and the spools were a whole line of them, big ones. So constantly I had to lay and stop it with my stomach.
What was your health like during this time?
I was not, a couple times I passed out, but then I was told to do it slow or do whatever, because if not I might be sent away. Because we had doctors coming there. Before I arrived, Dr. Mengele was there, and he made his own transport to Auschwitz. But otherwise, we had young interns. They were doctors, to me very young. They were coming, and when they came, they made big circus on the floor, and they stood on one side, and we had to strip naked and pose to them front and back. Whoever they did not like, they showed one side or the other. And that's how a transport was made. And in the middle of the night, those girls were shipped to Auschwitz. There was one girl, a beautiful young girl, just like Elizabeth Taylor. I mean, a gorgeous girl. And she had stomach trouble. And she used to vomit constantly. And everybody liked her. That poor girl was taken to Auschwitz. They told her they are taking her to a special hospital to cure her stomach. And she was also taken away.
Did you get your period while you were there?
No. See, the girls, I never had it before. And the girls that had it, they put something in the food that stopped them from getting it. So they swell up, they were very fat. I never had it. And so what they put in the food made me dry up. So I was skinny, I was just bones. And a matter of fact, I didn't get my period till I was late in my 17 years after the war.
What kind of shoes did you have while you were there?
No shoes, just the wooden cloths.
Did you have contact with men while you were in the camp?
No.
Did you hear any men around? Did you know if there were men around?
No, we in our camp were no men. But one time we could look out through the bars, very small, and we saw walking in the snow a transport of men. So they walked for so long and then they came to a rest. So one of the girls said that there was an extra barrack where we were, that they probably gonna come and rest up there. So they even took the food we didn't eat, and somebody somehow through the kitchen dropped it down through a hole for them to eat, because they didn't eat at all. So we took our food and gave it. But we didn't get in contact with them. Didn't see him either, except through a window.
Did you witness any beatings while you were there?
Yes, my sister was beaten too. I was pushed, I was not beaten. But my sister was beaten.
Did you see your sister being beaten?
I didn't see it, because she came in, her face was all like this. But the fact that they hit her so hard she couldn't hear.
What were were there women SS in the camps that were taking care of you?
Yes, then later the women, SS women, and they were terrible. Then they used to, it was before the war was over. I don't recall how in advance, but we had to dig our own graves. That's what they said it's going to be for us. So they were walking us every day to a certain place, and with shovels we were digging graves. And I had to do it too. I hardly could, but you had to, because the SS woman was staying with a club behind you.
What about the food in the camp? What was that like?
There was some water, you could get a slice of bread, just what they rationed you. And once in a great while a soup. And one time I remember, they said some horse horse salami or something. It was terrible. I couldn't even eat and think, but we didn't get food to eat. I think if I'm not mistaken, it must have been once a day, something like that.
What about the other inmates in the camp, or the other women in the camp? Were you close to them?
We were nice with one another, yes, but they were mostly older than I was. But everybody was nice in there because we all had the same thing, the same problem.
How did this affect your ability to survive there?
I wonder myself sometime how I survived. I don't know.
Were there children in the camp?
No, just the women and the girls.
Were there any pregnant women in the camp?
One came with a later transport, but we didn't know she was, I didn't know, I heard later that she was taken away during the night, that she was supposedly been pregnant, that she came from another transport. And when she started showing a little bit, they took her away.
How did you find out who was murdered?
How we found out?
Mm-hmm.
You mean while being in
Yes.
the concentration?
Mm-hmm.
Whoever was sent away, we knew are going to be killed to Auschwitz.
Did you ever hear about what was going on with the war?
No, not till almost the end. No. We didn't know nothing.
Did you think of your religion while you were there?
Of religion? No. I did not believe in anything anymore. After I saw what they did to little babies, they didn't sin. So where was God? At that time, I did not believe in anything anymore. Matter of fact, till even right after the war, I still didn't believe.
What do you think helped to sustain you in the camp?
I don't know. I really don't know. Because I was working and crying and working, and I don't know, and freezing. I don't know. I really wonder how strong I must have been. I don't know.
What was the weather like when you were there?
Well, you know, the weather is very cold, not to compare to weather we have here, thank God. The weather up there is winter. It's high snow and freezing and long winters. It's very cold, very cold. So, but we didn't have, the only time I could feel the weather is like going into work and coming back from work, going to the ditches to dig and coming back, or we could stay nights outside.
Did your barracks have a fireplace?
Fireplace, I don't know, it must have been some heated, but I wouldn't know what they.
How did you find out when the war was over?
Well, I did not, there were some partisans must have come in to the camp. I did not see anybody, but somebody found out and mentioned it to one of the girls, and it spread through the camp to, yes, the partisan noticed that some boxes were carried in, so they checked that, and that was dynamite, that they had a car up there and filled them with dynamite so it would blow us up, and that was detonated. But the partisans said for us not to go, the girls told us to the windows because supposedly the Germans are running away and they can shoot at us from through the window. So we couldn't stay and look out. We had to stay inside and away from the windows. And then somebody found out that we are free. So all the girls ran outside, scream and cry and hugging that we're free. And I was given my first loaf of bread, and one of the women grabbed it from me, tore it out, I was little, from my hand. And I was so hysterical then because we all were hungry. Everybody was dying for a slice of bread. In matter of fact, that we were liberated by the Russians, but it looked like food. Because now I know that there was some condensed milk I saw. At that time I didn't know what that was. And they were heating it somehow, and girls were drinking that with some noodles, and a lot of them died the same night that we were liberated. They never got up.
So, now that the camp is liberated, what happened to you next?
I was still with my sister there, and then I told her, look for somebody who is alive from this part, and I'm gonna go to Sosnowiec and look for somebody that I can see, find out if he's alive. I went there, and I went to the Jewish, and I met a girl that was with us in the concentration camp, and she was a Sosnowiec already. So I went with her to the Jewish committee, and up there was a list of names who lived through the war and where is the person. So I found my brother that he was in Germany and he lived through the war. So my friend took me to her place and I stayed there with her. And then it was in Sosnowiec. And then I had a lady that was with us in the concentration camp. And she lived in Katowice. And she came and she could take back, her aunt was there, and she could take back her restaurant. It was called Restaurant Halina in Katowice. And she invited us there. And then she went with me, and I wound up in Częstochowa and Chorzów in a children's home. And that's why I stayed.
What did
I
you...
had school, excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. What did you hear about your family, about your mother and father?
Oh, when I came to Sosnowiec, I went to where we lived, and I was told to get away from the Polacks that lived there then. I didn't know the ones that lived in our place, and told us to get away. See, a lot of them were killed during the war by coming into the homes. So when I came, I was hoping that I go home, that my parents, I couldn't think that they are no more there. And I got very sick, emotionally sick. Very depressed. I was a mess, so my friend took me that time to her house. See, I jumped. And then she went with me to Chorzów, to the children home. And up there, we were mostly the same age or a little older. We had school, we had advisors, and our food, I believe, must have been sent from United States. I don't know, but later on I realized the food was like American food. So we were fed, we had schooling, and there were a couple little children that the Polacks didn't want to keep, Jewish children. So they had them in that home too. But we were under supervision. We could go to a movie, but I was supervised.
How many people lived in the home with you?
In the home, we were comfortable there because it must have been about 30 girls or more. And we were all under good care. We were watched, we had curfew. Yes.
Where did you go next?
And next I wanted to go to my brother. So I went to Sosnowiec, to the committee, and I wanted to go to Germany. So I traveled there to Germany, and when I got to München, I met a friend too, the friend. She had gone already, and I met her, unbelievable. And she took me in, and she told me that she'll show me where the Jewish committee is. I wanted to go to, I'm now completely off, please God. From the children home, I went to Germany. I went to Czechoslovakia back, and up there I was in Poland. Oh, it's so hard for me to think anymore. I was in Poland with her, and then I went to Germany, and from Poland, in Poland, I didn't know how to go to Germany. How can I get there? So I went with the committee, and I joined a kibbutz, because the Jewish Federation, or is it the UNRWA, or Jewish Family Service, I don't know, they were working for who wants to go to the United States and who is going to Israel. But the kibbutz went to Israel and through Germany, and to America. I didn't know with who to stay, to wait. So I joined the kibbutz, and I went to Germany with them. And in Germany, I met my friend then, and she took me in because I separated from them, and she helped me stay with her for a while, for a few days, and she went with me to Garmisch, where my brother was.
How was your first meeting with your brother?
Very sad, and in a way happy and crying, because I arrived with one train and my sister came from Czechoslovakia with the other train, and both of us met the same night there.
Did you know what happened to your other sister and her children?
Yes, my sister was taken with my parents together to Auschwitz. I even was told, which I don't know, or just told, that they tried to take away the children from her, and she didn't let them, and she was so beaten. So I don't know if that was so or not, or what happened, but I know she went with my parents and her two little children.
So now you're all in Garmisch, Germany.
Yeah.
What are your plans?
I did not know of any plans then. I was just glad to have somebody, to have my brother and my sister, and we stayed together. And until then we could apply to go to the United States.
And what year was this?
I arrived here in 49. So from, I was in Germany, I think 2 or 3 years just. And I came to the United States in November 49. November 49, right.
How did you get to the United States?
Through the Hayas. See, you couldn't pick where you go in, but where they send you. My brother came to Baltimore. He was the first one. I was the second one. I was sent to St. Louis. I came to New Orleans and sent to St. Louis. And my sister to Kansas City. But when I came to St. Louis, I was with a family. Sent me to a family, which was very nice.
What was your first impression of coming into the United States?
Very sad also. I was crying. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what I was expecting by coming. All I remember is I saw so many cars, because you know in Poland you didn't have that many. You had very few cars. But I didn't know. I was sad and crying and very depressed. I didn't know what my life is going to be now like. What am I going to do? So the people were very nice where I stayed. And then my sister wrote to me and told me maybe I should join her after she arrived. So I went to my sister to Kansas City.
This is tape 3. I'm speaking with survivor Rose Finkelstein Kozlovsky. My name is Lucy Samarodin. I'm the interviewer. Rose, we were talking about you meeting your sister in Kansas City.
Yes. She wrote to me and I came to Kansas City to stay with her.
What was Kansas City like?
It was nice there, but I still didn't know what life is ahead of me for me. I was still quite down.
How did Kansas City differ from Sosnovich?
Oh, it's a big difference because even the United States, I cannot compare anything to Sosnowiec. Everything is here different, a lot different. So what I missed was the family. And that's why I was constantly sad and depressed, because I didn't know what to expect, what's ahead of me, how my life will be. Even being in the United States, I didn't know.
What did you do in Kansas City?
I went to work. I went to work in a factory where they
What did you do in Kansas City?
I went to work in a factory where they taught me how to sew on a power machine. I never sewed on any machine, but how to sew on a power machine. And I was making just straight seams, like to a sleeve. And I turned out to work a piecework.
What did your sister do?
My sister did not work because she had a child, so she stayed home. My brother worked.
What did he do?
He was a cutter in a factory.
And how long did you stay in Kansas City?
I stayed, came 49, must have come into her in 50, the beginning of 52. I came till the beginning of 52. Of the end of the beginning of 52, I stayed from sometime 49, the beginning of 50 till 52. From 50 to 52, I stayed in Kansas City. And then, since my brother was in Baltimore, I came to my brother in the beginning of 52.
Did you experience any anti-Semitism in Kansas City?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Did you ever tell your story to anybody in Kansas City?
No,
Why?
I just couldn't talk about it. I used to, when I spoke, I used to get like palpitation and then I get like tingling in my fingers. I couldn't talk about it. So they just knew I went through a concentration camp, but I didn't talk about it.
Where did you learn how to speak English?
Well, I learned some in Germany. I learned some English. But when I came, I was scared to speak because I really learned English and some words was pronounced different and meant the same thing, but like for example, a cinema, not a movie. I never knew what a movie was because I knew it's a cinema, but I didn't speak much when I came. I was afraid, and then it came eventually to me.
How did you get to Baltimore?
And I went to school, of course, here. So I
Where did
learned
you go to
English.
school?
What, in Baltimore?
Yeah.
I was learning, I used to go to the Pali, a night school, just night school.
How did you get to Baltimore?
Baltimore I came to because my brother lived here, and so I thought I'd come to Baltimore.
What was your first impression of Baltimore?
Same, it was, was already in the United States for a while. It was maybe a little bit easier thinking, but still I didn't know what the future mine is going to be. I don't know. I was quite shy, and now I had to get new work, and I didn't know what it was going to be. But eventually I got used and adjusted pretty good.
What was your health like when you came here?
Fine. Except getting off and on depressed and not sleeping good at night. That was going on the whole time. That even still would happen.
How did you meet your husband?
I met him at a show, a Yom Shoah. It was the no, you cannot call it anniversary. Anyway, memorial services were for the 6 million Jews, and it was in the synagogue on, is it Liberty Heights, or in the park, that big synagogue. So I went to the memorial services there, and that's why I met him.
And when did you decide to marry him?
About 6 months later, in November of 1952, we got married.
And tell me about your children.
My children, my oldest son was born in 1954, and Bernard, and Harry was born in 1957. And we had a small grocery store on East 24th Street, and that's where the children were born, both in Sinai, the old Sinai hospital.
And tell me what your children do.
Well, now, first I'm going to tell you that religion came a little more to me afterwards, and I wanted the children to have the background, so we sent them to Talmudical Academy. Mine older one left Talmudical before his bar mitzvah because he went in to Polytechnic Institute to the A course. And Harry, the younger one, graduated Talmudical Academy. So I was a little more observant then. And my older son, he's a physician. And my younger son, Harry, Bernie's physician, and Harry is in computers. So they both are doing very nicely.
Are your children observant?
Yes, they are Orthodox, both of them.
And how many grandchildren do you have?
8 grandchildren. 6 from my older son, Bernie, and 2 from Harry.
What would your message be now that it's more than...
And 2 good daughter-in-laws.
Oh.
Couldn't have prayed for better ones. They like daughters, Sonia and Adrian.
Now that it's more than 50 years since the Holocaust,
Yes.
what would your message be to your children, to your grandchildren, and to the world?
My message to my children, grandchildren, and to the world would be never to forget the Holocaust. To be well and to work against hatred and for world peace. That's my wish to my children and grandchildren and for the world.
Did you ever tell your children about the Holocaust?
I spoke to them. I did not tell them too much because the younger ones I did not at all. And then my children know quite a bit. And I always was worried for the nightmares. But they know.
What would you like to forget?
How can I? I could not forget. There is not anything. How can you forget that, what I went through? So really to say, I could not forget, that will be with me to my end. As long as I live, I'll never forget it.
Do you often think about the Shoah?
Yes, quite often, because I'm always thinking how hard I had, how young I was to be taken away from my parents. And that's going to be with me forever. So I appreciate now that God gave me that I have 2 children and 8 grandchildren and good daughter-in-laws, so that I have good children. I have something to live for. And that's what we live for, is for our children and grandchildren.
How do you think you lived your life?
Well, if I have to think back at home, then I had a happy childhood. I had loving parents and lovely siblings. I had a happy childhood till the war stopped all of it. And that cut my life very short.
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
I hope just that it will never, ever be repeated. and that hatred would eventually be wiped out and the world be a happy world to live in. There should be peace.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you. This is the picture of my mother, Hindalea Finkelstein. That was taken during the war, shortly before I was taken away to the concentration camp. It was on a very small picture and I had it blown up to this size. From the left is my sister, Cyril Silberberg. Then next to her is her son, my nephew, Shmulek. He was only 5 years old, 6. And then is the little girl, Junior, and she was 4. And my brother-in-law, Meyer Silberberg. And that picture was taken, I believe, sometime before the war, must have been shortly before, I'm not sure. And he died. She and the children were killed in Auschwitz, and he died after the war.
Wait a minute, Tom.
This picture is our younger son, Harry Kozlovsky, with his 2 children, Joanna and David. But Harry won't be able to come to the family picture because he is at work. And that picture was taken in Baltimore not too long ago in the house. And this is our grandson, Chaim Kozlovsky. He won't be here to the family picture. He is presently in Israel. He went for a year. The past 10 days he was traveling Poland. He also visited Auschwitz and other concentration camps and Vilna. And he'll be home hopefully in June. Now, this is my husband, my darling husband of 45 years. And behind us is our family, children and grandchildren.
I'm Bernie Kozlovsky, Baruch Fischel Ben Aryeh. It's a little bit difficult to even think or talk about what my parents went through. I know many times when I was younger they really didn't want to talk much about what happened to them. And as I got older they started talking, but for some reason it was difficult for me to, I guess, believe what happened, in that something inside me would tend to block out some of the things that they would tell me, and they would have to repeat over and over again before I would remember. I love them very much, and I wish there was a way to remove the hurt that they suffered when they were younger. We all feel that. My family could not have better parents or grandparents. May you have a lot of nachas from your grandchildren. May you live a long life for many more years and celebrate a lot of happiness because you deserve it. I want to introduce my family. My wife, Sonia, Scheindel, Malka Bas Pinchas. My son, Chaim Moshe Ben Baruch Fischel, is in Israel for a year learning. And coincidentally, he just came back from the March of the Living. He had a chance to go to Eastern Europe, to Poland, and to Lithuania, where my father was born, Poland, where my mother was born. And having spoken to him last night when he arrived back in Israel, it really had a tremendous effect on him. My oldest daughter, Dina Tova Bas Baruch Fischel, and my next daughter, Hinda Leah Bas Baruch Fischel. And where's David? There he is. Baseball player, David Yosef Ben Baruch Fischel. And the little ones. You want to say something? Hmm? Yeah? You know what to say something? This is Penina, look around. Penina Rivka, Bas Baruch Fischel. And the baby. You want to say something? Say hi. It's Eliza Vered, Bas Baruch Fischel. You want to say anything? I'd like to give the microphone over to my sister-in-law, Adrian. Introduce her family.
My name is Adrian Stein Kozlovsky. I am married to Rose and Leon's younger son, Harry Kozlovsky, who unfortunately was not able to be here. I know that he would have loved to have been here. He was instrumental in trying to set this up. I would like to introduce my children, David Joshua Kozlovsky and Joanna Eve Kozlovsky. And what I'd like to say about my in-laws is I've learned a lot over the last 15 years, and I admire them and am proud of them. I think they're wonderful people, and I hope that my children will learn from them and will have the love from them, and I hope that in the future years they will continue to show their love, and I hope they have many, many, many more years to come.
To say something. Sonia wants.
Just a quick word. I'm Sonia Kozlovsky, Bernie's wife, and on behalf of the whole family, we're very proud of Grandma and Grandpa, Mom and Dad, for having the courage to do this for all of our family and for future generations.